Welcome to our deep dive into one of the most chilling mysteries in Alaskan history. The story of Portlock, a once thriving fishing village that sits abandoned on the fog-laden coast of the Kenai Peninsula. Now a ghost town, Portlock remains shrouded in mystery and fear, known for the violent disappearances and deaths that plagued its residents decades ago. Some say that what happened in Portlock is simply the result of Alaska's harsh wilderness claiming its due. But others believe something far more terrifying was behind the town's downfall. A creature that locals came to know as Nantinaq, a Bigfoot-like entity feared as a murderous, lurking presence. So let's get into the history and try to piece together the facts, the legends, and the chilling accounts that have made Portlock, Alaska, one of the most enduring cryptid mysteries of the North. We'll explore what happened there, why so many feared to return, and whether the tale of a killer Bigfoot might hold a kernel of truth. Portlock, a small fishing village nestled on the southern tip of Alaska's Kenai Peninsula, was founded in the early 1900s and named after British Navy Captain Nathaniel Portlock. As Alaska entered the early 20th century, this remote region, rich in fish and timber, attracted settlers willing to brave its challenges. Its isolation offered plenty of resources, but also the dangers of Alaska's unforgiving wilderness. The area surrounding Portlock was known for its dense, towering spruce forests and rugged mountains, a place where visibility was limited and sounds echoed off the cliffs. For indigenous Alaskan communities, especially the Alutiiq and Tlingit peoples, these wilds held ancient mysteries, with stories passed down about creatures and spirits that resided in the dark woods. These tales weren't just ghost stories. They were cautionary tales woven into the cultural fabric, emphasizing respect for the land and its hidden inhabitants. Local legends included creatures like Kushtaka, a shape-shifting otter spirit known to lure people away with eerie cries, and Nantinaq, a tall, hairy, Bigfoot-like being with a temperamental nature. Unlike Bigfoot, described by enthusiasts elsewhere as shy or elusive, Nantinaq was feared as territorial and aggressive, capable of supernatural strength. In the indigenous belief system, Nantinaq was not just an animal, but a creature with intentions, a powerful presence that marked the land as its own. In Portlock, these stories were known but treated with a mixture of skepticism and respect. People shrugged them off publicly, but whispers of caution circulated, especially among the elders. For decades, life in Portlock maintained an uneasy balance, with villagers wary but undeterred, until disappearances and strange events shattered their complacency. As the 1920s dawned, Portlock began to experience an unusual wave of disappearances. Reports emerged of men, loggers, hunters, and fishers, venturing into the forest and never returning. At first, these were brushed off as isolated tragedies. After all, the wilderness surrounding Portlock was unforgiving, with thick vegetation, steep cliffs, and predatory wildlife, from grizzlies to wolves. But as the disappearances continued, search parties began finding disturbing signs. Deep footprints, larger than any humans, claw marks on trees, and remnants of campsites that had been violently torn apart. Rumors spread that something, or someone, was stalking the woods. Locals reported hearing chilling sounds at night, low growls, whooping calls, and snapping branches. These noises didn't resemble any known animal, and experienced hunters described feeling as though they were being watched or followed, even though they couldn't see anyone. Nantinaq's legend started creeping into conversations. Those who had dismissed it now reconsidered the warnings of the Alutiiq and Tlingit elders, who cautioned that Nantinaq was fiercely protective of its territory. The elders said that disturbing the land or its resources risked inviting Nantinaq's wrath. Still, Portlock's people were hesitant to believe a Bigfoot-like creature could be responsible. But as the years went on, the fear became harder to ignore. The mystery of Portlock reached its terrifying peak in the 1930s and 40s, when disappearances intensified and the town's unease turned into a collective fear. Men who entered the woods often never returned. In 1931, one well-known incident shook the town. A local hunter, experienced in tracking and survival, vanished on a routine trip into the forest. When his body was found, it was battered and partially dismembered. The injuries were consistent with an attack, but there were no known animals in the area that could inflict such wounds, let alone on an experienced hunter. As more bodies were discovered, they exhibited similar signs of mutilation: limbs torn, deep gashes across the torso, and disturbingly, some appeared to have been thrown or dragged over long distances. Witnesses who ventured near these scenes claimed to see massive footprints in the mud, leading away into dense underbrush. The footprint's size and depth indicated a creature much larger and heavier than a bear. For a remote, tight-knit village, such findings felt surreal and deeply disturbing. Tales circulated of Nantinaq becoming angered by the growing human presence. Some claimed to have seen it, describing it as a figure standing nearly 9 feet tall, covered in matted fur, with an almost human-like face and glowering, intelligent eyes. Fear quickly grew to panic as each month seemed to bring a new death or disappearance. And by the 1940s, Portlock's population dwindled as families left, unwilling to risk more lives. The few remaining residents, unable to reconcile the disappearances with natural explanations, held on as long as they could. But by 1950, Portlock was largely deserted, with only a few isolated fishermen remaining along the coast. Portlock was left to the wilderness, abandoned and silent. Portlock's terrifying history left many asking, what could explain these disappearances and deaths? As the years passed, a range of theories emerged, each adding a layer of intrigue to the story. The leading theory among cryptid enthusiasts and locals was, and remains, that Nantinaq was responsible. Described as a territorial creature, Nantinaq was believed to have an aversion to human presence, especially to large groups that disrupted the land. Sightings of the creature, strange sounds, and enormous footprints all supported this belief. Cryptozoologists suggest that Nantinaq could be a regional variant of Bigfoot, with an unusually aggressive temperament. Proponents of this theory argue that the lack of conclusive evidence stems from the remote terrain and the creature's intelligence, which allows it to evade human detection. Skeptics, however, argue that the deaths could be attributed to known Alaskan wildlife. Grizzlies, wolves, and large moose populate the Kenai Peninsula, each capable of inflicting severe harm, especially if provoked or encountered during mating or feeding season. The dense fog and rocky terrain of the area also posed risks. Some historians suggest that injuries and disappearances could have been the result of accidents involving falls, drowning, or hypothermia, where bodies were scavenged by animals afterward. Another theory suggests that some disappearances may have been the result of human violence. Alaska in the early 20th century attracted various types of settlers, including fur trappers, loggers, and occasionally criminals hiding from the law. Isolated, close-knit communities could become hostile, and some speculate that inter-settlement rivalries or territorial disputes could explain a few of the violent deaths. In this view, the legend of Nantinaq may have provided a convenient scapegoat, a way for locals to explain the horror without confronting darker human motives. Psychologists and sociologists offer another explanation, proposing that isolation and fear may have triggered mass hysteria. The remoteness of Portlock, combined with long, dark winters and terrifying tales of Nantinaq, could have created a feedback loop of anxiety and paranoia. Unusual sounds, shadows, and strange sightings in the forest could have been exaggerated or misinterpreted, ultimately snowballing into a shared narrative of terror. Hysteria could explain how reports of disappearances escalated over time, causing residents to interpret every accident or animal attack as evidence of a malevolent force. Portlock remained abandoned for several decades, its reputation as a cursed place growing with each retelling of its story. In the 1970s, however, interest in the Portlock mystery resurfaced, fueled by a broader cultural fascination with Bigfoot and the unknown. Cryptozoologists and Bigfoot hunters were drawn to the town, eager to investigate reports of a killer Bigfoot that had terrorized its residents. Several expeditions were launched, each one aiming to capture evidence of Nantinaq's existence. Footprints, hair samples, and strange vocalizations were reportedly collected, but definitive proof eluded them. One 1973 expedition by an independent cryptid research team spent several weeks in the area, documenting strange sounds, heavy footsteps, tree knocking, and distant howls that didn't match any known animal. In the early 2000s, a few enthusiasts who dared camp in the abandoned town reported unsettling experiences. Some claimed they felt watched or even heard footsteps circling their campsites. A team investigating in 2009 captured what they believed to be a distant howl on recording equipment, though analysis proved inconclusive. Though the mystery remains unsolved, the lack of conclusive evidence has done little to deter those captivated by Portlock's haunted past. The story of Portlock and its infamous killer Bigfoot has become part of Alaskan folklore, a tale that embodies the wildness and danger of the Alaskan frontier. For Alaskans, the Portlock mystery represents the land's ancient power and the resilience of those who have lived close to it. Whether real or imagined, Nantinak has embedded itself in local legend, with some nearby communities still regarding the area with suspicion. Books, documentaries, and online cryptid forums have helped keep the legend alive, often citing Portlock as one of the few places where Bigfoot's aggression was reportedly lethal. As a blend of indigenous lore, unexplained phenomena, and historical tragedy, Portlock offers a uniquely Alaskan mystery that continues to attract curious minds, from local historians to worldwide cryptid enthusiasts. To this day, Portlock remains abandoned, standing as a ghost town nestled within the Kenai Peninsula. It is a place where the boundary between myth and reality blurs, reminding us of how much we still don't know about the wilderness. Whether Nantinak truly lurks in the shadows or the story is merely a haunting legend, the tale of Portlock endures, a testament to Alaska's untamed wilderness and the mysteries it holds.